Welcome everyone to our Grow ANZ conversation. This is part 2 of a 3-part series. Today we are focusing on the consumer with you and I and all of us. I'm Annika. I'm from our farm in the Lockyer Valley. So we grow certified organic veggies. So before I started farming, I used to go to farmers markets every weekend with my 2 small kids. Sometimes I'd go to a couple of markets because I actually wanted to get the best of the best. So I'd go find the grass-fed beef over here and the raw milk over there. And I actually just loved going to farmers markets. And so when we decided to become a farmer, the number one thing that I wanted to do was grow organic produce and sell it at affordable prices, because in my heart, I genuinely want everyone to be able to have access to clean food. My children were really young at that stage, so I just felt for young children and their bodies needing the best quality food. So that's what I really wanted to do. It's been 12 years now. I've been going and selling to farmers markets for over a decade. We also sell to wholesalers across the east coast of Australia, and we sell direct into big chain supermarket, which there's a story behind that. I didn't ever want to do that, but there's one thing that farmers need, and that is financial resiliency, and you get that from diversification. And there's one thing you need when you're selling something is customers. So at the time, the organic market was flooded and we didn't have anywhere to sell. So we had to open up into another customer base. And this is something that farmers have to do be sustainable. So when we think about sustainability, we think about the environment, but financial sustainability is another thing, and farmers need that to be able to produce food. So it was a reason why we joined in to that customer base. And it's actually been good for me to see all sides of the consumer buying. So the psychology of buying and what customers want. And there are a few different customers. There's customers who want convenience. There are customers who don't care where their food comes from. They just want it in their cupboard. And then there's the consumer who's looking for fresh. There's the consumer who's looking for good quality and low prices. And there's so many different types of people out there, but there are the people like us who genuinely care where their food comes from. They want to know more and are sitting in this zone that we're all in right now, where we're like, what is happening with our food security? And that is why I'm so excited about this opportunity. This was presented to me by my friend Jen, who told me, I have something for you. We have to help the farmers more. And as soon as I found out what Grow is about, I felt like I'd found my home. Once you learn more about what Grow is about, which is about nourishing the plants, the people, the land, the animals, and we all can get involved. Grow is a community-led system. It's about protecting the agriculture industry using innovative technology, which is building transparency and resiliency. And it's a whole new way. So if you've been sitting and thinking the system's broken, or you're feeling concerned about what's happening with the food supply in Australia and in New Zealand, I think this is going to give you a whole other option. So there is a lot of new words and language that we use. This is a completely new paradigm. So it's going to challenge and test you at first, but I put my hand up and say, I have to listen to things multiple times before I get it. So you're not alone. Just keep showing up, keep asking questions. On the call, we actually have Neil, who is from Canada, and he's our grow expert. He can answer all the curly questions. He's a farmer himself, has extensive skill and experience within the agriculture industry. He's been on farms in Australia. He spent a lot of time over the last 6-8 months getting to know the food supply in Australia, so he can start to help all of us get on board. So I just want to hand over now to Neil, where he can tell us what this is all about.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Annika. And it is wonderful to be here in your morning. Some of you were on a call last night, and so welcome back. I'm glad to see you here. Last night's presentation was geared specifically for producers, and so I'm happy you were on that. And today, We're here really going to talk about grow from a consumer standpoint and sort of the downstream of how grow works. And grow works in three different verticals. It is for the farmers, it is for the consumers, it's also for the messy middle. And so that would be the independent supply chain that is very important to ensure that we get from field all the way through to your plate, so from paddock to plate. I'm just going to share a screen here. If I can get Lisa a thumbs up if you can see that, just because I see you on my screen. Brilliant. We had a few technical issues last night. They seem to be working very well today. So, grow. What is grow? Well, it's at the very core foundation. It is a blockchain. That word may scare some of you. We've heard about it. It resonates and brings up and conjures different thoughts of what we think we know. Really, it's just a powerful tool that creates better dialogue, trust, transparency, as well as traceability. And so it does three things amazingly well. It stores data in an immutable state, or what we consider a tamper-proof state. It allows us to analyze that data. So AI and Web3, your first term here that you should write down and start to do your homework on. AI and Web3 work amazingly well together and a lot better than Web2. And I'll explain what those Web1, Web2, Web3 mean. And then we can help you, if you so choose, to monetize that data. And as a consumer, how you can take advantage of those that are using the blockchain. And so we're going to start to talk about the introduction of decentralized finance. Again, I'm not here to pit something against something else. I'm here to say what we're building is a economy that's going to work alongside our current fractured and pretty constrained agri-food market space. And so the only way that we can find to depressurize so that this current system can find ways to rehabilitate itself is to build a new economy, and one that is going to be servicing first and foremost of the land stewards, the farmers, and really bring up the trust in the consumers so that we can continue to nourish the whole world. So making farmers the hero of the story, again, that's sort of the underlying premise. They need a larger voice. We need to support them. But as consumers, we really need to better understand how our food is being raised or grown and what that means for our own health. And so, combating some of the chronic health issues that are out there because we better understand the nutrition that goes into our food. Web3 and blockchain has been around for a hot moment. Grow has really just found a way to pull the levers more effectively so that it benefits everyone in the supply chain. And so as consumers, if we scan all the way back and take a very myopic look at a 30,000 foot scale, we'll start to see graphs and images like this. They should both make you go, yeah, that makes sense, and they should scare you. They should scare you because the centralization of these groups really is the constraint point in a lot of our agri-food market space. There's a lot of decisions that are being made by these central entities, and they're not in favor of the producer. They're not behooving you as the consumer. And we start to wade into the water of efficiency and production and profitability that override human health, functionality, and really ecological outcomes. And so we need to really take a look at these organizations and point fingers at them, but we need to come with solutions. So for a long time, and I've worked in agriculture my whole life, we tend to demonize big ag, big pharma, big food, that is sort of the processing of our big ag component. But we very rarely come with solutions that are going to behoove a different conversation. That's what Grow does. It allows us to actually toe the line, use something that everyone wants to talk about, which is data, in a way that we can actually flip the script and start to shake the bush and decentralize decentralized organizations. One of the biggest issues here with these centralized on the food manufacturing side is we've moved away from nutritional food. We've moved into UPF, ultra processed foods. And there's a lot of issues with that. If you eat little baby carrots as a consumer, please understand where those little baby carrots come from, because a lot of time they're being washed in chlorine baths. Yes, they may be diluted, but that chlorine still gets into the pores of those baby carrots. There are some well-intentioned people that thought that was the right thing to do, but the more we know, the more informed you are and the decisions you make and what you put in your body. Ultra processed foods go into the dyes. And so we work with not only arable land farmers, controlled environment operations, but also fisheries. And so fish being farmed and brought in have a very different color than what we actually see in our grocery stores. They're often filled with dyes, and those dyes are not great for our human body. Again, the more you know, the more informed you are. Now, I understand that everyone has, different budgets as it relates to food and what we can spend, and often it's a race to the bottom of, where can we find the best deals on our food. That's a system we've been educated in, and it's in large part controlled by the centralization. So faster, more efficient, ultra processed, driving price down, but it doesn't actually help us in our human health component. So when we think about nourishing the world, start with humans first. The more we nourish ourselves more effectively, the more coherence we can have, the more awareness we can have, and the different decision making capabilities can come out of that. Then we can start nourishing our ecological systems more effectively so that we can deal with the fires and the drought and the floods that are happening in our farm fields today, and start to create different outcomes so that we can continue to have a secure food corridor, particularly in Australia. You're going through it on both ends, from the cyclones that come from the water inland, to the fires, to the floods. You get hammered in all directions. And so we really want to be able to leverage what we're building at Grow and then take that into how can we continue to shore up our food corridors. Some of you know me, some of you don't. As Annika mentioned, I am a farmer. I started out farming blueberry and cattle, and so got involved in horticulture. I moved out to the prairies of Canada. So I grew up on the west coast of Canada, up actually, and my farm was up in the mountains. So I grew in some very inhospitable climate. All things considering, speaking to a bunch of Aussies, we get down to minus temperatures, Celsius, and we have white stuff on the ground. And so it was a very different farming concept than a lot of farmers I speak to. I moved out to the prairies of Canada. I got into broadacre agriculture, large farming operations, and really carved a path in helping steward primarily ranchers first, and then it expanded into grain farmers and into CEA, controlled environment agriculture. Stewarded them in helping them understand their balance sheet and how to steward the land ecologically more effectively. So you diversifying the balance sheet by practicing more biodynamic, organic, sustainable, regenerative, whatever the term is that you want to use. We were doing better ecologically, and that played out on the balance sheet, which created a little resiliency. The one thing I was always missing was a tool like the Grow blockchain, because it allowed us to capture data and really be able to use that more effectively. And so we've come a long way. I've been very blessed to be in agriculture and from the field, really understand how we raise and grow food. I've also got involved in the downstream component. So how we take food from the field through the supply chain. And that means innovative food manufacturers that are really trying to preserve nutrient components in how we're processing food. Think of wheat turning into flour, stoned milled, taking ancient seeds, so Kernza seeds versus genetically modified seeds. Again, I'm not pointing fingers at anyone that is currently farming in a certain way. We get caught in these cogwheels. What I am saying is that there are better and different systems out there that produce healthier food for us, the consumers, at the end of the day. And it's for us to really do our homework and explore, and Grow is a place where you can actually trust the source of data, so that you can make better informed decisions about what you're going to put in your body and nourish yourself. My experience, as Annika mentioned, has very thankfully taken me over to Australia several times. I've worked from all the way through WA into the sort of southern region down to Esperance. I've been over in Eastern Australia. I actually haven't spent a lot of time in the Northern Territories. Unfortunately, I'd love to get up there, flies and all. But I am very blessed to know quite a lot around Australia and some of the agri-food market space. What continues to drive me, there's a few things that really fuel me. My wife pushes me every day, challenges me to be better. She grew up in South Africa, and I mention that because her perspective on life is very different. She grew up in a sugarcane family in a throughout apartheid. So if you're interested in exploring that, please do some homework on that or reach out, and I'd love to chat to you about that. But that perspective of community, that perspective of breaking bread and being social around good quality food, that perspective of ensuring that your neighbor has got enough food on the table every day, really sort of underpins some of the things that were innate to me on a regular basis growing up in a more affluent Canadian culture. And it really continues to fuel me in some of the work that we're doing at Grow today. I remember her telling me that, some days they would just eat bread and have tea. That was all that they could get onto the table because that was all that they had access to. And I really want to change that. I want to change that for everyone. And so those that can afford food and those that can't afford food, and whether you're on a program, we want to fix the food corridor system so that we can have accessible, good, nutritious food for everyone, not just some. This is my herd in Canada and my farm. I like to show you some of my background. It's one thing to hear it, it's another thing to see it. Yes, that is the snow on our yurt. If you ever come visit me, I'll stick you in the yurt. It's wonderful. Anyone that comes to my farm has to do some work, so be prepared to get your hands dirty and feel the frequencies of hand in dirt and being able to work the land. The other thing that continues to drive me are these five hats. And these five hats are amazing individuals that are no longer with us. So one of the downstream issues that we don't often talk about, and this moves into us as consumers as well, is the plight of the world, that weight on our shoulder that drives us into unfortunate situations of suicide. And agriculture is very succumb to that. There's a lot of suicide in agriculture globally, in Australia. We want to continue to support our farmers. Us as consumers who actually vote with our dollars, vote with our utility, vote with buying food and understanding, the effort and blood, sweat, tears that's gone into growing or raising our food. It's very important that we continue to understand where our food comes from so that we can create resiliency right at the farm gate level. And that's just creating more breathing room under the collar here, and being able to ensure that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and there's a community. And so one of the things as consumers coming in to Grow is understanding that you're part of this community. You can be a resource. You can be a shoulder to, hear out different frustrations. You can help connect consumers into the farm market space, and really start supporting those those that are really trying hard to continue to feed us nutritiously. So think of these five hats, not necessarily as individuals that are no longer here, that provided great wisdom and went ahead of us. Think of these five hats as the next five farmers you want to go and explore what they're doing on their farms. There's some of them on the call today. Annika and Stephen are two. Try to understand, as Stephen raises cattle, small ruminants, sheep and cattle. He's got some forage, which is just feed for the animals. And then Annika's got amazing produce. So if you're a consumer and you don't understand how they're actually raising their animals or their grasses or the produce, reach out to them and just start asking questions. And it's pretty enlightening on what goes into that food that we're going to consume at the end of the day. So Grow was set out to try to answer some questions. What if questions? If we could prove where our food came from, well, we can. We can today. Access better markets for producers. We, as part of this Grow community, are a new market space, first and foremost. You as consumers voting with a Grow token as a mechanism of purchasing your nutritious food are creating those new market opportunities. How do we reduce compliance friction? Well, data that everyone can trust, that no one is manipulating, that is a source of truth. That's how we reduce some of that friction. We reduce due diligence and some of the compliance issues. And so it's really powerful. Create new income streams. Absolutely. We're doing that in spadefuls. And you as consumers are part of that creation. How do we continue to stay independent so we don't have more conglomerates and centralization happening, but we can actually decentralize. We can shake the bush and start to see more opportunities. In fact, if you're a consumer and you've ever thought about farming, like, I'd love to have a little farm one day. Maybe I'd love to grow my own food. Maybe I'd love to get into supporting my local communities. Well, grow might be a stepping stone to help you move towards that vision. But I'd love to invite more people back into agriculture. Just start growing food in your own backyard. Start helping out the food supply chain by growing some of those essentials and really understanding what goes into that. And then how can we future proof against market and policy shifts? Um, there's no better time than today to really think about how fragile our food corridor is. It's held together with a toothpick. We're being constrained by geopolitical issues going on and very unfortunate situations. But that is affecting everyone. The diesel that goes into running the machinery that is going to provide the food for us. And right now in North America, it's, we don't have enough diesel to potentially even put the seed in the ground this year. And so what are we going to do? In Australia, on the other side of that, how do we get the crops off the field? There's other components to go into, those that farm with different fertilization programs or fertility programs. Well, that's being bound up. So we're going to have to start thinking about more nature-based solution options, farming differently so that we can continue to provide food into our supply chain so that citizens of Australia can all eat. And so Grow offers a mechanism to start moving in that direction. And that's really, really exciting, but it's you that are part of that as a consumer. So our mission, again, nourish people, animals, and the planet. It starts with people. We have to rebuild our health, and then we get into the animal and planet and the ecological system. We really do want to amplify the voice of farmers, and that's us really helping support that so that they have a larger voice. They're not dictated to, that they're actually weighing in on some of the changes that are needed in our agri-food space. But ultimately, that comes down to you having more trust in the quality of food and where it's sourced from. And so, we think about food miles sometimes, how far the food is traveled, and what that means in terms of storage or shelf preservation chemistry that's gone into that. We also think about exports and imports. How much could we actually grow within Australia versus importing? And what would that mean to the diversity of our landscapes, what we're doing with our land, and even our grocery stores where we're actually purchasing a lot of food. Most of us are a single grocery store citizens, I say. We go to the same grocer over and over and over again. We walk the same aisles because it's friendly and it is comforting, right? We know where to go. We can turn the aisle, pick up our pasta, we can pick up our tomatoes. But I challenge you, grocery stores are a two-sided market space. They have to buy from distribution, processor, logistics, which comes from the farm, and they also have to service the consumer, right? And so we, are continuously in a friction spot as a grocery store. And what I challenge you to do is ask them more questions about where they're sourcing their food from, and then change one habit every time you go into that grocery store. Look for producers, farmers that are actually supplying into that grocery chain that that might be around the area. Start thinking about the simple things. Every time you pick up a package in the grocery store, the more ingredients you read on the back of it, it's probably more processed than you actually think. And so start looking for simple things, packages that have very simple ingredients on the back. Start changing your food habits, and you'll start to think differently about where we access our food. And so that's my challenge to you as consumers. And I'm going to show you something really exciting where you could go when you really start to catch the bug of what Grow is doing and want to jump all in. So I did promise you that we're going to talk about Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. I always start with Web 1. That's where all of us started in this wonderful world of technology. Most of us, the World Wide Web, we innately trusted everything that was on the World Wide Web. Encyclopedias were being scanned in and digitized. We were becoming very social through platforms like Facebook, finding ex-girlfriends, making a large world, very small. I mentioned that because I did that. So, you can find ex-schoolmates and et cetera and so forth. But it really created a very social connectivity for us. That very quickly moved into Web 2. And that's the world primarily that we find ourselves in today. And it is a crazy world. Today, more than ever before, everything you do on the World Wide Web, you have to enter data, your personal information, so that you can use some of these systems and platforms and do research and read. Even newspapers have paywalls that you have to put your information into so that you can read the news. news that should be, at your fingertips and, accessible so that you can understand what's going on. I use Uber as an example. Some of you may have understood that I do a lot of travel. Well, Uber probably knows more about me than I know about myself. And that's very scary because they were one of the first companies to stick up their hand and say, we sell your data to the highest bidder so that other people can market to you, so other people can understand your behaviors and habits. And that's very scary. Translate that into the food market space. Well, everything you're doing in the grocery store is being traced and tracked so that they continue to market to you, not the good, healthy food, but things that have the highest margin, that are padding the centralized entities, the things that really are driving ultra processed food and efficiency. That's all being tracked and traced. If you look up in the rafters of any grocery store and you look at the number of cameras that are up there, most of those are tracking behavioral patterns. I know how many times you're going to the aisle for kiwis, just because we're talking to Australians and New Zealanders on this call. How many times we're looking at breads. By the way, white bread, ultra processed white bread isn't very healthy for you. I know I love it, but it's not very good. And so you really need to understand the source of where that wheat came from and how many ingredients went into it. And so when we think about data, it's being used against us, taken from us, and then used against us in ways that we don't know. Well, there were some wonderful people back in about 2007, 2006 that decided that we needed to do something different. And so they started on this journey to build Web3. And this was the ownership economy. It's the world that Grow is in. And it really is about owning a piece of this wonderful World Wide Web and owning your data in that process. And so those pioneers were somebody that started, it could be one or four people, we can debate that later, but Satoshi, that started the Bitcoin blockchain, was really the premise behind how we can start moving and leveraging this ownership economy. And then that's just taken off in spades, and it's really, really exciting. So today, Grow is a fully decentralized community. In fact, we just had our very first, right before this call, Grow Community Council meeting. So the council is governing the Grow blockchain. It means that as founders, we're not making unilateral decisions. We're actually going to work with collective entities that are head and heart, individuals, I should say, not entities, individuals. They're going to help guide and keep Grow on track and hold us accountable so that we meet our mission, which is to nourish the world. And that is a long time coming and not something that a lot of blockchains do, by the way. And so something to really take note of in terms of what Grow is doing. Grow is also very fortunate to be part of a sister group of blockchains. And I do want to mention this because our core foundational technology really sets us apart. And there's a few other blockchains, they're mentioned on this pinwheel here. And the benefit of us all running the same core foundational technology is we really start to actually build a secondary economy that is going to meet the needs for us as consumers. Everything from video conferencing systems like the one you're on today, that's part of this pinwheel cycle here. We can actually find rideshare programs that are going to be launched, blockchains that are not fully functioning yet, that will compete against those Ubers that I mentioned, so that you can have trust of your data and actually access the things that are meaningful to you in life. But it starts and stops with food, because without food, we can't nourish ourselves. And if we're not healthy and we're not fixing our food systems and our ecological systems along with that, then the rest of these wonderful technology platforms aren't going to have merit. But this is really, really exciting, and it actually allows us to stand apart from pretty much every other blockchain project that's out there. So please take note of that and really underline that in some of the notes that you're taking that I can see that you're writing down. So the future is now. Farm-focused ecosystem that is going to allow you to be part of something new and actually be able to nourish and feed the world. But if we don't do anything, we're going to be on this roller coaster. So business as normal, and we can allow the disruptive technology, the new technology, to come and be like a fly to a moth, or a moth to a light bulb, in terms of new technology being the new shiny object. But really, take a look at what Grow did. We started slow and steady. We didn't come out flashing, and we've actually built something that is going to last. It's going to be something that we hope continues on for generations, and that you are all part of and contribute to. And so, don't get stuck on the red line. Don't get distracted by the blue line. Really focus on things where you have ownership. It may be a bit scary, but it is certainly the way that we need to move if we are actually going to decentralize our global entity. Now let's think about blockchains. What are blockchains? Well, as I mentioned, they store data, they analyze data, and they monetize data. That is at the very core functionality. Something else that's very different about blockchains is they run on something called nodes. Nodes, and certainly write this down, NODE, are what allows blockchains to be different than centralized servers or data centers. And nodes have a lot of different functionalities. If you are anyone in the agriculture industry, you might think of nodes in the root structures in plants. Well, they function kind of the same way, right? In the fact that the nodes in plants are actually signaling what we can do. They verify nutrients to come into the rootstock and go up. They the exudates, the sugars that come out of them, are all part of what creates the biology system underground. Well, the nodes in the blockchain do a lot of the same things, except most blockchains have multiple different nodes doing all these different functions. Our core foundational technology put it all into one node. We call that the smart node. And so it does everything. It validates, it verifies, it authenticates, it distributes, it analyzes, and we actually allowed you to have an ownership piece in the blockchain by owning one of those nodes. And in us using your nodes, you actually get rewards for us to be able to run that node on our network and have that node contribute towards the verification, the authentication, the validation, and the distribution of different products and services that can happen within our ecosystem. The other thing the node does is it also creates a portal for people to store data. And so this is a very powerful and really neat tool. But don't worry, you don't have to be a technophile. You don't have to be super knowledgeable in technology. If you're on this video call, you've already done the hardest part, getting onto the World Wide Web. You can run these nodes on your laptop, on your smartphone, and they're really easy to operate. And they distribute Grow rewards. Grow rewards allows you to actually go buy food off of our commerce platform from farmers, part of our ecosystem, that's healthy and nutritious that can feed you and your family. We can also trace information without paperwork overload, so you can actually trace your food and know where it comes from. We can create practice incentivization so that people continue to steward lands more effectively and get rewarded for that. We can create stronger negotiation that's mainly for the producers and farmers because we're leveraging the data that's not being manipulated. And we create off-farm assets. And so this goes for the consumer as well. Those nodes, by the way, are appreciating digital assets. And so if you think about net worth income statements that you might put together, you might take into your bank to get a mortgage, these can actually sit as part of that net worth profile assessment as digital assets on your own personal financial ledgers. And so think about them as a very beneficial tool that provide a multitude of value far beyond just the ownership of it. The next largest digital asset class coming is the digital asset class from real world assets, and Grow set up for that. So we can actually tokenize real world assets. We can tokenize a cow, which means we create a digital version of that. You can own a digital cow in the near future in Australia here. We're just finishing the alpha testing in America. And soon it will be launched in Australia, but this is going to go into a lot of other RWA. It's a term that I want you to write down, real world asset, because those are going to be things that you can actually purchase and trade and stake and have and use for your benefit as a consumer. And so really pay attention to what Grow is doing with the real world asset tokenization. It's all around diversifying balance sheets. You may have heard Stephen at the start talking about his diversified farm operations, and he gets into actually a wedding venue as part of that sort of eco agriculture tourism component. Well, Grow offers a multitude of diversified balance sheet opportunities for producers, but that also contributes and is in correlation with you as consumers in just a different way. And we'd love to talk about that one-on-one. So why Grow? The nodes? Absolutely. Real world assets? Absolutely. Token utility, being able to use tokens to actually purchase food? Absolutely. Our community, it started with our team, the core founders, and now it's moved to our community? Absolutely. And our decentralized governance framework. These things set us apart and make us very different than most Web3 projects that are out there, and really allow us to create a mechanism to move the needle in our agri-food market space. And so this is what we've built. And the one thing that I want to talk about, um, these are applications built on our blockchain, and so they're really powerful. We've got a consultancy for farmers. We have traceability programs. We have that tokenized real world asset. We have carbon credits or ecological credits, water, biodiversity, social good. But we have this wonderful thing called the Nourish Mart. And this is where you can use Grow tokens and actually go and purchase food from wonderful Australian vendors, and feed your family. And these are not just food and beverage vendors on there. There's vendors that have other products as well. I noticed last evening, yesterday evening, for you, there was some beekeepers online. You might have beeswax candles, you might have soaps, and so there's going to be a lot more products, as well as food and beverage, that are nature-based solutions and offerings that these producers have, that are going to benefit you and your family and your communities. So let's pay attention to the Nourish Network. On our blockchain right now, just so you understand, we have about 17,000 acres of irrigated acres and multiple different crops, and that's expanding daily. We've got about 25,000 head of cattle and about 10,000 acres of conservation land that we're protecting in Peru, actually. So it's wonderful. We get into the conservation, the afforestation piece, so that these lands continue to be a benefit to us and our world. So the Nourish Market space, I want to pause here. TheNourishMart.com. TheNourishMart.com is the website. The Nourish Marketplace title was up there on purpose. It's a head nod to our mission statement to nourish the world. So hence Nourish. It started as a Web3. Can you still hear me? I hear one of my headphones just died on me. How about this? Can you hear me now?
Yep, got you now.
Wonderful technology, no battery life left in them. So we're going to go rogue here and just speak into the computer. The Nourish Market space started as a direct consumer model for a lot of producers. And as we continue to expand in Australia, we really are encouraging all of you as consumers. If you're at the farmers market, if you're speaking to producers, if you're speaking to maybe farm to table restaurants that have things that they'd like to sell, or if you're speaking to somebody that you think might benefit from being on the Nourish Mart, come and talk to us, because we'd love to get more vendors on there so you in Australia can use Grow tokens to start to create a secondary economy and really start to nourish and feed your families and communities more effectively. Also, it's turned into a business to business opportunity. And so producers, as we invite agribusinesses in, producers are able to use Grow tokens to maybe offset some of their input costs, of their infrastructure costs to run their operations. And so that's really exciting as we think about continuing to build utility functionality in the Nourish Mart. And so with that, I'm going to get towards the end here. And if you stay on after this recorded presentation, I'll get into some examples, financial examples, on what we can do and what we can think about. They're kind of future looking models, just as a what if kind of scenario. But for you today on this call, I would really recommend you reach out to somebody who invited you here and go set up a Grow wallet. Those Grow wallets are just a great example of how easy it is to be part of a decentralized community and really the functionality and access of this digital sovereign wallet. It really is sovereign. There's no back doors to it. You own the keys. It's your wallet. And then book a call. Book a call with the person that invited you here. Book a call with me. Talk about some of the things you'd like to see happen in utilizing decentralized finance as part of your everyday use. And by the way, it is scary to think about decentralized finance. I get it. Come with your questions and your skepticism. I had them as well, and it really does start to play merit into what we can do. Decentralized finance will run alongside traditional finance, and it creates a pressure relief valve for yourself, a little more breathing room, and appreciation that we haven't even thought about. And so those nodes can actually help you feed your family and decrease the Aussie dollars coming out of your pocket in a time of inflation and craziness in our agri-food market space. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Just before we wrap up, I'll just see if there's any questions in the chat box that we can answer. I need to move this here.
Well, while you do that,
you.
while you check the chat box, Neil, I just wanted to let people know that actually, if you click on that green button that says Neil's Calendar Book Call, it's an interactive link on your screen. So you can actually click right there and it will take you directly to Neil's calendar. So if you'd like to have a one-on-one conversation and Neil can really help you understand the grow space more specifically for you, just click on there and you'll be able to find a time in his calendar and you can book that call. So I just like to explain that because people aren't really used to having an interactive screen in a presentation. So hopefully everyone's had a chance to have a click on that link if they want to. Awesome.
Amazing, amazing. High five to all the beekeepers online. Donna, hopefully you can watch the recording and see some of the slides that you missed there. Somebody was running off to the Byron Bay Farmers Market, so let's make sure we get talking to them and figure out what's going on in Byron Bay there. I spent some time in Nimbin, not too far from there. Smile, smile, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Lots of good stuff going on. Thank you for the wonderful compliments. Well, thanks again, everyone. Please stay on. I would love to share some of the examples that we have here in the what if statements, but we'll end this recording. Please share this with as many people as possible. Thank you again.